Today, we're diving into one of the most intense, most debated topics in biblical prophecy. It's a prediction that's 2,500 years old, but many believe it's not just ancient history. They believe it's unfolding right before our very eyes.
I mean, you see the headlines, you feel the tension in the world. When you see major powers clashing and these ancient conflicts flaring up again, you can't help but wonder, is this just another chapter in the history books, or is this a sign of something much, much bigger? Something that was foretold thousands of years ago?
To even begin to understand what's going on, we have to go back, and I mean way back. Not just to last year, but to a prophecy written around 580 BCE. The prophet's name was Ezekiel, and he had a vision that has fascinated and puzzled people for centuries. And now, suddenly, it feels like that ancient vision is snapping into focus in our modern world.
Okay, so let's get the main characters straight. The prophecy is all about this figure called Gog, from a land called Magog. Now, Gog isn't a name like Tom or Steve. Think of it more like a title, like a pharaoh or a czar. He's described as this powerful, really evil leader who cooks up this grand scheme to invade Israel in what the Bible calls the last days.
And here's the thing, Gog isn't coming alone. Ezekiel chapter 38 lays out a very specific list of nations that are going to join him. You see these ancient names, Persia, Cush, Put. For hundreds of years, these were just dusty words on a page. But now? Well, now people are drawing what they see as straight lines from these ancient names to modern countries. And if they're right, the implications are absolutely chilling. So how in the world does a 2,500-year-old text connect to our 24/7 news cycle? Well, the people who believe this is happening now say the stage isn't just being set. They'd argue the actors are already in costume, taking their places, and the curtain is starting to go up. Look at this timeline. For many scholars, the Gog and Magog war simply could not happen until one absolutely critical thing took place first. The nation of Israel had to be reborn in its ancient homeland. Well, that happened in 1948, so they say check. With that piece of the puzzle in place, all eyes turn to the other nations in the prophecy. And then just in the last few years, we've watched Russia and Iran build the closest military alliance they have ever had in history.
And this brings us to a quote from Joel Rosenberg, an author who has been talking about this for years. He puts it so bluntly. He says, an ancient prophet, Ezekiel, wrote thousands of years ago that Russia and Iran would form a military alliance to attack Israel. Imagine reading that 20 years ago. It might have sounded far-fetched. Today, it sounds like a geopolitical reality.
So you might be asking, how do they get from these ancient names to today's countries? Well, it's a bit like historical detective work. Persia is the easy one. That was the official name for Iran right up until 1935. But what about Magog? The text says over and over that Gog comes from the remotest parts of the north. Well, if you stand in Jerusalem with a map and a compass and draw a line straight north, where do you end up? Smack dab in Russia. For many, that geographic clue is the smoking gun. And believe me, these interpretations have huge, real-world consequences. For millions and millions of people, this isn't just some interesting Bible study. This framework shapes their entire worldview, it influences their politics, and it fuels their passionate support for the state of Israel, because they see it as the absolute center of God's prophetic plan.
Okay, so that's a pretty compelling case, right? It feels like it all fits. But hold on. There is a very strong, very significant counterargument here. Not everyone is convinced that today's headlines are the direct fulfillment of Ezekiel's vision. In fact, there are some serious calls for caution.
Now, this is one of the most important distinctions, so let's break it down. The Bible actually mentions a Gog and Magog war twice. The one in Ezekiel describes this limited group of nations, Russia, Iran, and so on, and it happens before a 1,000-year period of peace. But then, way at the end of the Bible, the book of Revelation describes another Gog and Magog battle. This one involves all nations, and it happens after that 1,000-year period. So this suggests two totally different wars, which really complicates things.
And that's not the only issue that skeptics bring up. There's another huge one. It's not just about the attackers. It's about the state of the nation being attacked. Does the Israel of today really match the description in Ezekiel's prophecy?
And honestly, this is a major roadblock for the "it's happening now" theory. Ezekiel 38 is super specific. It says that when Gog attacks, Israel will be living in safety. It calls them a peaceful and unsuspecting people living without walls. Now, think about modern Israel.
It's a nation with one of the most powerful militaries on Earth, with border walls, an Iron Dome defense system. Critics say that is the exact opposite of a peaceful, unsuspecting, unwalled nation. For them, this crucial condition just hasn't been met.
And on top of that, many theologians point directly to the words of Jesus himself as a kind of warning against getting too carried away. In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus tells his followers, hey, you're going to hear about wars and threats of wars. He says, don't freak out. This stuff has to happen, but the end is not yet. It's seen as a call for a posture of wisdom and readiness, not panic in date setting.
So, where does all this leave us? We have two very different ways of looking at the exact same ancient text. One side sees the geopolitical chess pieces moving into their final, prophesied positions. The other side is hitting the brakes, saying, whoa, not so fast. There are some crucial conditions that just aren't there yet. Let's try to wrap our heads around this whole debate.
This chart really helps lay it all out. Both sides agree. Israel's rebirth in 1948 was a huge, prophetic-level event. But after that, the views really split. Is the Russia-Iran alliance the prophesied invasion force, or is it just a temporary political partnership? Is Israel's current state of high alert the calm before the storm, or is it proof that the prophecy isn't ready to be fulfilled? It's really a debate between seeing the foreshadowing and waiting for the literal fulfillment.
So, after hearing all of this, what are we supposed to do with it? Well, according to many of the thinkers we've looked at on both sides of the argument, maybe the point of prophecy isn't to give us a secret code to predict the future, to let us pinpoint the end of the world on our calendars.
Maybe, they argue, the purpose is found in a totally different perspective. This quote from the Gospel of Luke kind of shifts our whole focus. It moves it away from looking for signs in the sky or in the headlines and toward an internal, present reality. It suggests that maybe the most important truth isn't about a future apocalypse, but about what's happening right here, right now.
And that leaves us with the final and I think most important question. Is Ezekiel's prophecy a literal blueprint for the future that we're watching on the nightly news? Or is it a powerful story, a powerful lens that gives millions of people a way to make sense of a really chaotic and uncertain world? That's the question to think about.